Hey you! Yeah, you! Do you miss Windows 7's iconic arrow interface with the translucent, blurry surfaces? Do you think Windows 10 looks so goddamn ugly that you want to punch your monitor? Well, so does this GitHub creator, who out of nowhere released this little piece of software called DWMBlurGlass, which, as you can see from the pictures here, adds this stylistic blur effect to title bars on both Windows 10 and 11. So we're going to check it out together. I'm going to leave a link to this in the description, and you can just go over here to the latest release, which at the time is 1.0.3, and we're going to download the zip file here. Let's open it up, and because of some nerdy Windows computer stuff that I don't really understand, you need to install it to somewhere not in your user folder. So I'm just going to go to the C drive here, and I'm going to make a little tools folder, and then I'm going to drag this over here and extract the zip file, and I'll call it DWMBlurGlass just to be organized. And then let's open it up. The smart screen doesn't know who published this. Let's hit yes on the admin prompt, and you can see we're in DWMBlurGlass. There's a few little tools we have here. Let's just go ahead and click install first to see what it looks like out of the box. And it seems like we've got an issue about not having valid symbol files. Okay, let's try install the symbol files. I'm going to pretend I know what that is and click the big shiny download button here. And then I'm going to try and reinstall this tool here. Install, and there we go. Looks like it's already running. So if I minimize here, you can see the title bars have this really simple blur to them. Now, File Explorer, we'll come back to that later, but for now, let's try out some other windows that might have this effect, like maybe Notepad. Yep, it's got that title bar blur. Now, Microsoft, would this have been so hard to implement? This looks gorgeous, even on its own. Looks like frosted glass. Even the taskbar, by default, already looks sort of like this. It's mind-boggling to me why Microsoft haven't toyed around with the idea of something like this. You can see we have a few other settings here, like extend effects to borders, and once you're done you can click save config, and that sort of brings back what Windows 7 and Vista did, where it had a little extra border around the corners. Now it doesn't seem to work too great against certain surfaces, but in other ones it does, so it's kind of up to personal preference, as is all of this. It looks a bit broken in this case, and you can see there's an arrow reflection effect, which I haven't been able to see what this does. Oh, it works here! Well, on my host system, I tried this and it didn't work, but if I bring up this Windows 7 picture, you can see how it has this sort of glass sheen to it, and it looks like it's working here. I don't know why it wasn't working for me before, but there you go. And we can also reduce the height of these buttons up here, which will look a little bit broken on its own. Personally, these buttons by default are so pointlessly tall in my opinion. The title bars in Windows 10 just kind of piss me off because as well as looking ugly, they're just such a waste of space. But now if we go back over to Explorer here, we've got small little buttons. Now it didn't actually make the title bar smaller, but I think you can do that with other tools out there. You can change the blur radius, so that customizes how much your thing gets blurred, and you can see there's a preview image down here. So you might want to have a bit less of a blur, save config, and you could probably get it to be more accurate to how Windows 7 blurs stuff if you want to. And you can also blend it with a color of your choosing. So let's say we wanted a nice green here. Let's try go for this minty-ish color and save. Sometimes it takes a few seconds to apply, and sometimes it only applies to other windows. And there we go. This looks very nice. Obviously the corners here are a little buggy, but we can disable those if we'd like. If I turn this off. And this doesn't even look out of place. Well, the small title buttons do. But here, this just looks like something that could potentially be a part of Windows 10. And it's a shame that it's not. Also, this tool does work on Windows 11. It just works in a slightly different way to my knowledge. And I'm going to search for a nice green wallpaper really quick so we can just get a sort of theme going on here. And if you had something like Wallpaper Engine, you could obviously use that in tandem with this to get like a sort of animated effect going on. Let's just go for this Aurora background here. I'm always a sucker for the sort of starry sky type scenes. And that's quite nice. What if we change this to be a little more cyan turquoise? Bring up the opacity a bit, save config. There we go. Isn't that so nice? I think it is. And if we go back over to the GitHub project here and go back to the README, scroll down here a bit, you can see they mentioned it is compatible with Explorer Blur Mica and it works better together. So let's give that a try. In my testing, it was a little bit jarring. It looked like very transformative. And same process, I'm just going to also put it here in C Tools. And I'm going to name it Explorer Blur Mica. And I'm going to right click register and run it as administrator just to be safe so it gets all the permissions it needs. Okay, now let me try and close my Explorer windows and reopen Explorer here. There we go. So it changes the texture of your file browser to all be this semi-translucent color, which, well, it's an acquired taste, I'll say, but it does give this aura of modernness to this old Win32 program, I think. And obviously this is completely optional. You don't have to do this, but I think it's interesting. You also have a config here, so you can change these RGB values depending on which theme you're on, and you can decide whether or not you want the address bar to be clear. Maybe, I believe if you turn that to false, then this will still be white if you prefer that. But I think this is pretty okay the way it is. And then finally, the README file also mentions this little program called translucent flyouts, which changes these little right-click menus that you have on some programs to be translucent so that it works better and brings a more cohesive experience to this whole arrowy style we're going for here. So exact same process, I'm going to download this from GitHub, and exact same process, I'm just gonna make a folder here for translucent flyouts and put all of the things ever here. Oh yeah, also I forgot there is totally like a graphical interface version of this program made by this person. Not gonna try and pronounce their name because I don't want to embarrass myself. So let's give this a try instead. I'm gonna make a little config folder here, drag all the stuff in, run this program. And Microsoft Smart Screen is not very happy with these, but that's okay. And it opened behind this. I would not have been able to tell if this was not translucent. Currently my right-click menus look like this. They're all opaque. So let's go ahead and run install as administrator here. And it's doing patchy type stuff. Let's just let it do this. Press any key to close this window. Sure thing, buddy. And I think I might have to restart my computer for this one. And if I right click on the taskbar here, voila, it's all translucent now. Very nice. Right click on the desktop here, and it's all blurry and arrowy looking. And then if I use Windows E to open up a file browser and go back into my tools, translucent flyouts config, open this up, we should now be able to configure some settings here, like changing the border color, let's say, to this sort of green accent we've got going on. Hit apply, and then if I right click, Explorer had to reopen there. If I right click, we've now got a green border there. Very fitting. You can change the effect type, so we could try classic acrylic blur and look at the differences between that. Let's try change the gradient color here a bit. I think I remember doing this before and not really liking it because it made it very... Oh! Yeah, it made it completely opaque here. As you can see, the alpha is 255. So if I apply this, you lose your transparency. But I only just noticed now. Let's try set this to like 128 and apply that. Yeah, there you get your blurriness again. Of course, this isn't exactly like Arrow at all anymore, but it is just in the same vein, you know? It's making it more nice to look at. And you've got all these different settings and parameters for all these different menus and tooltip dialogues and things like that. Okay, now we're on to some honorable mentions. Just some pretty quick things I'd like to mention if you're going to be styling your Windows 10 install that you might want to know. If we go into settings here and then personalization, really quick, we should also just make this match and set it to a green color so any modern UWP apps will match the color. We can also tell the taskbar here to use this color and the window borders and stuff, so that makes it more cohesive. And you can see that stuff is green and the start menu is green and it all is matching up now. And actually, if you go into home here and ease of access, you can go over to mouse pointer and set it to whatever color you'd like. So let's just make this more of a matching color to the theme we got going on. Might make it a bit brighter, like that, and a bit larger, like size 2. There we go, isn't that nice? Jump cut, editing stage soafen here. I forgot to mention something. You see how the selection stuff is blue on programs like Paint.net here? There is actually a registry entry that controls this. Let me really quickly show you this. We open regedit, hit yes on the admin prompt, and then navigate to HKey current user, control panel, and colors. There are 2 values here. Highlight, for example. If I just take a print screen of my computer and then paste it into Paint.net, and I get the hex code for like this, or sorry, not the hex code, the RGB values, and if I put that into this, for example, 126.238.176, And then also the hot tracking color you can see here is this color, 0102-204. We change that to more of a greenish accent, maybe a bit darker, and then copy those colors in, 10, 153, 84, and then restart our computer. You should notice if I select here, look at that, it's the matching green. And if I open paint.net, look at that, all of this stuff right here is the matching color. Isn't that beautiful? And even in Windows 11, as much as I may hate it, I believe this color also does affect stuff like the highlight. So you see how these are turning white here when I hover over them? I believe if you make this registry tweak on Windows 11, it actually changes the color that things highlight to, which is really nice. So hey, yeah, that was just something I wanted to throw in there when I was editing this video, and I remembered, oh my god, I forgot to mention that. I will have no other opportunity really to mention it. Yeah, pro tech tip for you. Ooh, something's going on with that there. Yeah, so when you start theming Windows in ways that it doesn't expect, it might break a little, but personally, I think it's worth it. It still looks very nice, and you can see me reopening File Explorer there was enough to fix it. Except for those things. And if you decide that you don't want these anymore, you can of course come into these where you still have them. And for example, DWMBlurGlass here, you can uninstall it. And for the other tools, you also can completely unregister the drivers there. And yeah, this was not a super in-depth video about theming Windows. There is surprisingly a lot you can do even for later versions of Windows 10 and 11 to theme them just to make them look a bit less crap. But that was just a quick overview of DWMBlurGlass and a couple of its other recommended programs, which can very quickly make your Windows install look a lot less fugly, we'll say. If this tutorial helped you, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. And yeah, I will catch you in the next one. Let me know if you have any requests for tutorials you'd like to see in the future. My name is soafen. I will see you all next time, and bye!